There's a reason the guitarist and the drummer crush with women, and the scientist and the physicists don't, because the scientists and physicists use logic and reason to make their money, and the guitarists use artistic thinking and creativity, and it evoked emotion. I told my sales team you were coming on. They got really excited.
Oh yeah.
But the first thing they did was their biggest pain point, which are the main objections that they get.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, if you were going to guess in this industry that I'm in, so lifestyle dating, what do you think the main objections my sales guys get?
I want to think it over.
Okay.
I don't have the money.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one other one. And that is, I put out so much.
It's definitely not, I want to talk to my spouse.
Right.
Yeah. you avoided that one.
But to be fair,
Objection
they're actually,
prevention.
because it's a lifestyle brand, we do have about 15% of our guys that are married, and we actually have had, I need to talk to my spouse before.
Yeah.
I need to talk to my lawyer is another one. But the other one was, so we put out a lot of free content.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like, yeah, I don't want to buy right now. I want to go through your free content. We have hundreds of hours of free content. Have you ever had that objection where we put out too much free stuff?
Yeah, but here we prevent it from happening. Because so let's say if our salespeople get on a call, that's a one you can easily prevent. So I might get on there. I'm going to ask what are called NEPQ connection questions. So let's say, do they do a lot of inbound leads where they're like booked on the calendar?
So the setters do inbound. I'm sorry, the setters do outbound. The closers do.
So your closers, they show up on Zoom virtually.
Yeah.
So they get on there. Okay, so looks like you welcome. It looks like you booked on the calendar about looking at different ways, different things to say to kind of date the women you're wanting to date, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I have to look at the scripts we have for your industry. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like you booked on the calendar about looking for ways to date kind of more of maybe a beautiful woman or something, right? And they're like, right. See, I'm getting them instantly in results-based thinking, right? Remember, I'm not selling the thing, selling the results of the thing, which is to date more attractive women, if that's the case. Then I'm going to simply ask them, since you're an influencer, I'm going to say, so so walk me through, how long have you been following Michael for? Now, why would I want to ask that question? Because that tells me how indoctrinated they are in your methodology and what you talk about. Because they're like, oh, I haven't been following them all. I just saw an ad this morning. That's completely different. Like, well, I've been following them on Instagram for 6 months. Now they're more bought in. So I can kind of tell by that, right? And then I say, oh, and where do you follow them at? Because in our channels, based on if they're following me on LinkedIn compared to if they're following me on IG, usually it's a different type of avatar.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, it might be more of a senior vice president of Exxon Mobil or whatever. Compared to IG, it might be, some guy that's selling whatever, bicycles or something. It just depends. So that kind of tells me. And then I'll say, okay, so you follow them. Okay, so you've been following them on like the basic reels and stuff, right? Basic reels and stuff, right? They're like, yeah, the basic reels. Yeah. So that's how we start to prevent that. We start to see, because as you know, I mean, it's like, it's crazy to me, because how are they going to, as you know, you can't master something by a 60-second reel when you don't know the context of what's before, what to do after. Like, what if she says this? What if she asks that? Because I've rarely been on a sales call in my 17-year sales career before I started 7th level where the prospect stayed on script. Have you?
No.
You might start talking to a woman or whatever, and it doesn't always go scripted like you role-played it.
General Patton said the enemy has a vote too.
Exactly. Yeah. They don't say on script. So you have to be flexible with that. So if I find out, they're coming on IG for that, and then I'm gonna basically find out, kind of a little bit. It tells me a little bit about it, and then I'm like, oh, so you follow them on like the basic reels and stuff. And I see here my so you just follow them on like the basic reels. Like, I'm downplaying it. Not saying it's bad, right? But my tone is kind of, I'm seeding that they're just following the basic stuff. Yeah.
For sure. The other objection, the one you just brought up, not today. That's the biggest one. It's probably the most frustrating thing for my guys. It's like, I love everything you're doing. They, through the entire interaction, I'll listen, and it's yes. Oh my God, I love you. I love Michael. And then it's like, I'm not making a decision today. How do you deal with that?
Okay, so I'll show you how to deal with that, like, I need to think it over type of thing. But most of that can be prevented. Most of that is typically triggered by the salesperson not building a big enough emotional gap from where they are to where they want to be.
Got it.
Because when somebody says, I want to think it over, do they really go and after they leave, they're like, oh yes, let me think this over. I'm going to write down the pros and cons.
Let me ask you something. Just keep that thought. But they'll have me jump on the call.
Oh yeah.
And I get on the call and I'm like, hey man, the easiest way to not go to the gym tomorrow is to not go to the gym today. Yeah. And the easiest way to go to the gym tomorrow is to go to the gym today.
Yeah.
You create momentum.
Yeah.
Right now, you're in your proper mind state. In a couple of weeks, you're going to be eating ho-hos and sitting in your room playing video games by yourself.
Yeah.
Right now, you're sharp iron. if we get off this call and you don't make a decision today, that means you're getting in a pattern of not taking action. And we've seen that work before. I don't know if that would be something, or you think that's too pushy.
No, I think it's good, but it's getting them into logical based thinking. So it's like a logical based trap. It'll work on a few people, but you have to play through the numbers. So I'd rather. So let me go back, and then I'm going to show you what we would do. What I would do. I like it. I would change it a little bit because I got to get them on their emotional side of their brain. Like, why did they even show up to the call? Obviously, they know they have something going on, right? There's a reason why. So remember, I'm not selling the thing. I'm selling the results of the thing. So basically, if I can get them to, because it's not enough to ask like questions. Like, give me a couple questions you guys might ask. Just throw them out.
You talking about the objections?
No, just in the conversation. Like, give me a couple questions.
I'm a sales guy.
Yeah, you're a sales
guy.
Got it. Talking to me, like, what's a couple questions they might ask?
What is it that you're missing right now? What is the thing? Like they'll search for a pain point. So they'll be like, what is it about your social life and your dating life that you think is missing right now that you wish you could do better?
What would an average prospect
They
say?
just start talking. It's just a lot of people who were just recently divorced. Often there's child custody battles, and so that we have to limit what they can post on social media. Very common. A lot of prior military guys will talk about, and you listen to them, and it's very clear. It's like, I did the logical thing, and then the girls don't respond. And one of the things I explain is like, there's a reason the guitarist and the drummer crush with women, and the scientist and the physicists don't, because the scientists and physicists use logic and reason to make their money, and the guitarists use artistic thinking and creativity, and evoked emotion. So that's one of the things. We'll ask them that.
It's all about clarifying and probing off that. So let's say that you ask that question, because to me that's a really good question, but they're going to probably ramble on for, I'm going to guess, for 2 to 3 minutes, right? And if they ramble on, that is actually in their brain triggering uncertainty, because their brain's starting to become unorganized. They're going all over the place. I have to be the facilitator in that conversation and control it, but in a way where they don't feel like I'm controlling it, where they still feel in control.
So like when Jordan Belfort talks about getting back on the straight line.
Yeah, exactly. I call it the yellow brick road. Like people, they don't stay on script, right? So you ask that question, and one guy will say 2 words, right? And another guy will, blom it for 5 minutes. That guy that blommets for 5 minutes, I'm more worried about him because he starts to become unorganized. So I've got to get back on, oh, that makes more sense. But I'm not understanding when you said, and I interject. So I interject with what's called a verbal cue. I know this sounds crazy because everybody thinks they lose. Like, I need to work on closing. No, you need to work on verbal cues. You need to work on verbal pacing. You need to work on verbal pausing. You need to work on your tone, because that's where the sale's made, not on do you want the red or blue one at the end? That's not when they decide to buy. So if I hear something like that, I'm like, so while they're talking, I'm like, okay. Now, every 8 to 12 seconds, I'm using a verbal cue. You don't use it every 2 seconds. Like, really? Okay, but what happened then? And I can interject with the verbal cue. I can verbal cue. I can bridge in. I'm not interrupting. I'm not saying, well, let me show you we solved that. I'm like, but I'm not understanding. What do you mean when you said you're stressed, right? And I'm interjecting back in. I'm going to clarify and probe. That's where you use the confused tone. So let's say that prospect give me an emotion that they might say, like, oh, this has caused me what?
I'm just really lonely. I'm not getting what I want.
Hold on. Lonely? Mm-hmm. See what I just did there? Right as you're talking, I interject, hold on, lonely? And I have the confused tone. Now, what that does, your subconscious, you don't even know what's going on, your subconscious says, he didn't understand what I meant by lonely. I need to expand and clarify on that. And that's where the pain starts coming. But see, I interject, and it's kind of like I interjected, but with a question, so you don't feel like I'm cutting you off because I'm still focusing. Hold on, lonely? But I have to use that confused tone. I can't say, how do you mean by lonely? I can't be all like playful. That's not going to work. The confused tone causes them to expand on it.
Is there a point during the call, though, later on when you use absolute certainty, or do you just stay in, like, how does that work?
Certainty for me is just because you're using neutral language doesn't mean that you're not coming across in a certain way.
Okay.
Right? So when I say that you don't want to come across too excited, I mean, you don't want to come across like the typical like used car salesperson persona. And nothing against used car sales, we train tons of them that crush it. But they come out like, hey, welcome to the dealership. How's it going? How can I help you today? Just looking. So you just triggered sales resistance. Yeah. Right? You triggered that reaction by your tone, right? So when I say, when I say you want to come across more neutral, more unbiased, that doesn't mean that you like talk timid like a little boy, like I hope and pray you buy this. Like that's not going to work. Yeah. I'm talking like I am now. Like I'm assertive, I'm collective, I'm calm, but I'm still neutral. I'm unbiased. Like I'm not quite sure we can help yet. I don't know enough yet, but I can still talk with that tone and that manner. I still have certainty. So I get in a situation sometimes where a guy says something and like it's exactly what we could help him with.
and I get triggered. I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, what'd you say? You want to be able to bring 70 girls to a party and be a better networker? And then he starts naming the people that he's friends with. And
Hold on, why do you want to bring 70 girls though?
Huh? 70?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'd ask him. Oh, hold on, you want to bring?
No. I teach them to bring 70.
But but if he said like I want to bring.
Oh,
70,
got it.
I'd be like, hold on, why? Okay, but why do you want to bring 70?
Yeah.
What's behind that?
Yeah.
So I'm going to probe and clarify.
Yeah.
It's not just why he wants to do it, but what's behind the why.
Okay, so but he'll say that, and then sometimes I get pulled off sides, and I'm like, bro, you have no, like, I'll grab my head. I'm like, bro, you have no, like, this is exactly what we teach. Like, and then I'll show him like 50 testimonials. Like, bro, I don't know how else to say this to you. Yeah. Like, this is exactly what we can help you with. And in 6 months, you're probably going to be teaching this to our students.
You know what I would say instead? Because that's all logical.
Yeah.
And you're proving it to him.
Yeah.
But you ever heard that a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still? It's logic. So I would say, I would just simply be like, that's actually one of the biggest reasons why people come to us for sure. And I just seeded what? That's what we do every day, but I can seed it differently. I love the logic and stuff. And you're right, you do that. Obviously you have the undeniable proof, and I think it works really good in the ads, but I think when you get on sales calls, it'll work on quite a few people.
Yeah.
But then with some people, they're just like, they don't make decisions on logic, right? Like every decision is made. You start every decision you make with your emotion side of your brain. I feel like I need a drink.
Yeah.
I feel like talking to Jeremy right now. I feel like looking over here. So every decision you start with starts with your emotion side of your brain.